Okay, hello everyone. Good morning and assalamu alaikum. My name is Asma Malik and I'm the head of listing at Pakistan Stock Exchange. To all the participants who have joined me in today's webinar, thank you so much and a big welcome. Today's webinar shall be on the growth enterprise market, or GEM as we like to call it. And here this market has been specifically designed for growth companies which include SMEs, startups, as well as greenfield companies. And here we are trying to target a specific set of issuers, those that are in their early to mid stages of development and those which require capital to fund their growth and their funding needs, and which do not want to be subject to the numerous regulatory requirements of the exchange. So I think I can take the questions by the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, you can put them down in the chat box. So I'll go in detail about the growth enterprise market and about the growth companies in just a bit. But before, I'd like to start with a brief introduction on the SMEs and their importance to the Pakistani economy. There are approximately 3.3 million SMEs in Pakistan. They employ about 78% of the non-agricultural labor force. They employ about 25% of the manufacturing exports, and their output actually contributes about 30% to the annual GDP. So by this, we can understand that SMEs are actually contributing towards inclusive economic growth. They are the backbone of the economy. Because of this, their amazing capability to generate jobs and to foster entrepreneurship. There are a few sectors in which SMEs are really predominant, which include textile spinning, weaving, fisheries, gems and jewelry, carpet weaving, IT, etc. So though there are many issues that are faced by SMEs today, there are two, in my view, that are really important. So number one is historically, the regulatory and the policy environment has not been very conducive to the growth of SMEs. The government historically has basically focused on large-scale manufacturing units and has not really focused on the growth and the development of SMEs. Number two, SMEs lack financial capital. They are overly reliant on their own personal finances, on credit from suppliers, loans from friends, family, angel investors, etc. So not just that, to compound the problem, there is poor financial accessibility as well. So banks do not actually lend them loans, and whenever banks actually do provide loans to them, they do not provide loans to them at affordable rates. So PSX has always been cognizant of this particular issue, and over the last many years, we've always tried to provide SMEs with an enabling environment in which they can grow and in which they can flourish. In February 2015, we actually launched the SME board, which was a board on which SMEs could come, they could get listed, and they could raise funds for their growth and for their expansion needs. However, the feedback that we got from the market after Feb 2015 was that this particular board, the regulations around it, they were really cumbersome, they were really onerous, and the issuers, they never considered getting listed. In Feb 2019, in fact, in the whole of 2019, massive efforts were actually made to revamp the SME board. So by December 30th, 2019, our efforts actually bore fruit and the growth enterprise market was officially launched. Growth companies could now come, they could get listed on the exchange via private placement. So growth companies could actually now offer their securities to accredited investors, or we call them eligible investors, by issuing an information memorandum to them. Accredited investors basically include institutional investors. So they would include banks, financial institutions, companies, insurance companies, brokers, mutual funds, voluntary pension schemes, etc. And they would also include eligible individual investors. So all HNWIs having net assets of at least 15 million, excluding the value of personal residence, could come and they can invest in a growth company. Okay, so if you feel that you are a growth company and if you would like to consider getting listed on the exchange, you must be compliant with our eligibility criteria and you must meet this eligibility criteria. Number one, you must be a public limited company having a post-issue paid-up capital of PKR 25 million. The operative word being post-issue. So your existing pre-issue paid-up capital may actually be less than 25 million, but once you come and you get listed, your post-issue capital should be at least PKR 25 million. Number two is the requirement of audited accounts. So say you've been in operations for a number of years, let's say for the past 5 to 10 years, you've got to show audited accounts for the last 2 preceding financial years in the information memorandum. And say you've been in operations for less than 2 years, then you've got to show audited accounts for a lesser period, for less than 2 years. And if you're a greenfield company, so you've got no operations at all, you can come and you can still get listed, so you will still be eligible. Number three, at least 10% of your post-issue paid-up capital must be offered to eligible investors. So say you're coming in with a post-issue paid-up capital of 100 million, 10 million must be offered to eligible investors. Number four, you must offer your securities either through the fixed price method or through the book building method. In the fixed price method, your securities are going to be offered at a fixed offer price, and in the book building method, the value of your securities is going to be determined through a competitive process of bidding. You need to have, number five, an active and a functional website. You need to disclose what your principal business activity is on your website. On your website, you need to disclose, the name of your directors, the names of your management, their profiles, your capital structure, a little bit about your shareholding, the names of your group companies, the names of your associated companies, and again, lastly, your financials, a little bit about your financials. Okay, number six, you need to have a very clean track record. Your sponsors need to have a clean track record. So the sponsors should not actually be sponsors of a listed company, which is in default PSX regulations. And the sponsors should not be sponsors of a listed company which was actually delisted from the stock exchange in the last 3 years due to non-compliance with our listing regulations. Number seven, we need to show a clean CIB report. So the issuer, sponsors, all your shareholders, all your directors need to have no overdues, need to have no defaults appearing in the CIB report. So a clean CIB report is essential. And last but not the least, all your sponsors have to give in an undertaking that they shall retain 100% of their shareholding for a full period of 1 year after listing, and 25% of post-issue paid-up capital has to be retained for a lock-in period of at least 3 years. So in short, that means that once you're listed, for the first year of listing, you cannot exit, you cannot liquidate at all, you cannot liquidate any part of your shareholding. And subsequently, for the next 2 years, you can liquidate part of your holding, but you've got to retain at least 25% of the post-issue paid-up capital. Okay, so if you're considering coming and getting listed on the growth enterprise market, the first thing you need to do is appoint an advisor to the issue. So the advisor to the issue can either be a consultant to the issue licensed by the commission, or it can be a security broker licensed by the commission. As of today, there are 17 consultants to the issue that have been licensed by the commission. I would like to name a few that have really active investment banking teams, like RF Habib Limited, AKD Securities Limited, JS Global Capital Limited, BMA Capital Management, Next Capital, Topline Securities, and Intermarket. So all of these consultants, they've got really active investment banking teams. You can consider appointing a security broker as well, because like I said, at the present moment, there are a lot in number. So the responsibility of the advisor would be to make sure that you as a company meet all the eligibility requirements of the growth enterprise market. And then once they feel that you are eligible for listing, they've got to, number one, draft an information memorandum, which is basically a document which is meant for eligible investors in order to secure funding for you. Number two, they've got to conduct roadshows on your behalf. They've got to market your issue. They've got to pitch your issue to eligible investors. And last but not the least, once all that is done, once they feel that you meet everything, everything is done, they're going to submit the listing application to the exchange along with other requisite documents to get approval of the exchange for listing. So as I mentioned, the information memorandum is a document for accredited investors in order to encourage them to subscribe to equity securities of a growth company in a private placement. Certain minimum disclosures are required in an IM, which are given within the PSX rulebook in Schedule 1. But I would like to cover a few disclosures that I feel are really important. So on the cover page of the information memorandum, you've got to clearly disclose that this is a prospectus for that this is not a prospectus for the general public. So it's only meant for a select class of investors. Then you've got to give simple basic advice to investors that growth companies are exposed to a higher level of investment risk. So they need to consider that before they actually come in and buy securities of the growth company. There are other certain disclosures which you need to give. For example, you've got to talk about salient features of the issue, like the issue size, what is the face value of the scrip. If you're going for the fixed price method, you've got to disclose the offer price. If you're going for the book building method, you've got to disclose the floor price. Certain other things which you can also disclose, you've got to talk about your group companies, your associated companies, what is your capital structure, a little bit about your board, so names of your different board members, their profiles, names of your different, names of your management team along with their profile. You've got to talk about what is your principal business activity, what market share do you have at the moment. Within the IM, you can give a brief industry analysis, give a brief peer analysis, talk about the risk factors, both internal and external, mention if there are any pending litigations, if there are any contingent liabilities. Most importantly, talk about the purpose of the issue and talk about how the proceeds of the issue are going to be utilized. And last but not the least, talk about your financials, how you've been performing in the past and how you're likely to perform in the next 3 financial years. So this IM needs to be placed on the website of the issuer, on the website of the exchange, and on the website of the advisor to the issue. Okay, here we've tried to summarize how you can come and you can get listed. So you're a growth company. The first thing you need to do is appoint an advisor to the issue. The advisor to the issue has certain primary or basic responsibilities, like making sure that you meet the eligibility requirements for listing. And then once he feels that you do meet the eligibility requirements, he is going to develop the information memorandum for you, and then he's going to market your issue to eligible investors. And then the advisor to the issue is going to submit the listing application to the listing department of the exchange. My team, we are going to perform a basic due diligence, make sure that the application and the applicant meets all the eligibility requirements of the exchange. The exchange then, once it feels that all the basic eligibility requirements are met, it is going to approve the listing application, and the growth company shall then be allowed to actually come get listed through either the fixed or fixed price method or through the book building method. So we've kept the listing fee down to bare minimum. This is the fee that has to be paid by the issuer to the exchange. The initial listing fee is 0.05% of the post-issue paid-up capital. It has been capped at 50K, so not a lot at all. If there are a few startups and a few SMEs who are listening to me today, I'm sure you'll be happy to hear this. Because if you come and if you want to get listed on the main board, the initial listing fee is in millions. So again, this is a big incentive that has been provided to growth companies wanting to or deciding to get listed on the growth enterprise market. Your annual listing fee is going to depend upon your paid up capital. So say your paid up capital is up to PKR 50 million, your fee is going to be 50K. If your paid up capital ranges between 50 million and 100 million, your fee is going to be 100K. And if your paid up capital is over 100 million, your fee is going to be 200K. So we've capped even the annual listing fee at 200K. I'm sure you'll agree that that's not a lot. Once you're listed, trading in your shares is going to take place through the CATS. And for those of you who don't know what CATS is, that's the trading system which PSX has. And it's basically called Karachi Automated Trading System. Once you're listed, you will be required to maintain a minimum free float of 10% of post-issue paid-up capital at all times. And all clearing and all settlement in your shares is going to be done through national clearing on a T+2 basis. Once you're listed, you've got to prepare periodic financial statements, have them audited by a QCR rated chartered accountant, which basically means a quality control review rated chartered accountant. Those financial statements then have to be placed on your website. Not just that, you've got to prepare half-yearly progress reports in which you've got to provide the investors or give them a status or an update on how well you're doing with your project, how the proceeds of the issue are being utilized. You've got to submit that particular progress report to the exchange for public dissemination, and you've got to place a copy of that progress report on your own website, so that anyone interested in your progress report can actually come and view it. There are certain disclosure and certain reporting requirements that are going to be mandatory on you once you come and you're listed. So you must disclose and disseminate all material price-sensitive information. That would include all material non-public information that has the ability to impact your share price. So any information, say, regarding change in management, say any change in financial condition has to be immediately disclosed to the exchange and to all market participants. You've got to disclose to the exchange and to all market participants any related party transaction, as well as any miscellaneous information. And by miscellaneous information, I mean if there's any change in your registered address, let's say, or there's a director which has resigned or a new director has been appointed, you've got to intimate that to all market participants immediately. Your CEO is going to be responsible for regulatory compliance, and he will be responsible for submitting such a compliance report to the exchange at the end of every half year. As an issuer, you will be required to comply with all the listing requirements, all the listing regulations of the exchange, and all post-listing requirements. And in case you do not, then the exchange would be at complete liberty to take any disciplinary action, which can range from imposition of a fine to placement of that particular growth company in the defaulter segment. And lastly, suspension in trading if you continue to violate PSX regulations. There are three ways in which you can actually exit from the growth enterprise market. The first being voluntary delisting. So let's say you choose at any point in time after getting listed that you would like to voluntarily delist from the growth enterprise market. You can easily do that. We've been told that the process of voluntary delisting is actually going to be far easier for a growth company as compared to a company that is actually listed on the main board. Number two is compulsory delisting. So if you do not comply with PSX regulations, if you violate any PSX regulation, then PSX would be empowered to mandatorily delist you from the exchange. And number three, I think the best way to actually exit from the GEM would be a migration from the GEM onto the exchange's main board. So say your top line, your revenues have increased substantially, your bottom line, your profits have increased substantially, your reserves have increased substantially. So you feel that you're fit to migrate from the GEM to the main board, because the main board is actually the market for the elite issuers. So you can consider doing that. Reverse migration has not been allowed. So an issuer listed on the main board can presently not consider moving from the main board onto the growth enterprise market. Okay, here I've tried to summarize the 10 different ways in which growth companies have been provided waivers and relaxations and ease in the overall regulatory environment. So number one, growth companies at the present moment do not have to comply with the Code of Corporate Governance that is applicable on companies listed on the main board. So what we are foreseeing is a lighter, more relaxed code is going to be introduced by the Commission for such growth companies. Number two, we're looking forward to a simplified voluntary delisting procedure for such companies. As I've already mentioned before, the voluntary delisting procedure for companies listed on the main board is a lot more stringent, and the voluntary delisting procedure for companies here is going to be more easier, and it's going to be easier and more simplified. Listing fees on the growth enterprise market are much, much lower, as I've already mentioned, as compared to a company that is seeking listing on the main board. Now the requirement of submission of audited accounts has been eased. Earlier, the requirement was for submission of 5 years audited accounts. Now, if you're considering coming and getting listed on the GEM, you've only got to submit audited accounts for the last 2 financial years. And if you're a greenfield company, meaning a company which has no operational history, no operational track record, earlier you were not allowed to come and to get listed on the SME board. Now, such greenfield companies can come and they can consider listing on the growth enterprise market. The free float requirements too have been eased. Earlier, companies had to have free float requirements all the while they were listed at about 20%. Now, free float can be maintained at 10%. Issuer can now choose from a wider list of advisors to the issue. So earlier, if you were considering coming and getting listed on the SME board, you could only appoint as an advisor to the issue a licensed consultant. Now you can appoint as an advisor a licensed consultant or a licensed security broker. So your choice of an advisor to the issue is much bigger. You can choose from a bigger pool. Now we've actually removed the cumbersome requirement of submission of a feasibility report by the advisor to the issue. So earlier, the advisor to the issue was responsible to submit a feasibility report when they were considering listing an SME. So the advisor to the issue had to write in that feasibility report that they had, completely analyzed the SME, its project, and they felt that the SME and its project, they were actually viable and they were investment worthy. So this requirement was cumbersome and it's actually been removed now. Number 9, the requirement of submission of progress report has also been eased. Progress reports earlier had to be submitted on a monthly basis. Now their frequency has been reduced. Now you only have to submit such a progress report on a half-yearly basis. Last but not the least, the requirement of disclosure of financial projections in the IM2 has been eased. Earlier, you were required to give financial projections of 5 years in the information memorandum. So this requirement has now been eased. Now you've got to give financial projections only of 3 years. So we're available if you have any questions from the PSX team. If you would like to reach out, get in touch with the listing team or with the marketing team, you can do so. We've given our we've given our contact details here. You can contact us on any of our numbers. If you're not based here in Karachi, say you're based somewhere in Punjab, you can reach out to my Lahore office or my Islamabad office too. And they would be, I'm sure, really happy to help you out with any query that you might have. Okay, so if you have any questions, I think we can take them now. You can open up your chat box and you can type in any question that you may have, and I can respond to that question. Thank you, Ari. Okay, thank you, Umar. Your question is, as was discussed earlier, is there any cap on companies considered for listing at this board? A very good question. Actually, earlier there was a cap on companies that were considering listing. So companies had to have a post-issue paid-up capital no greater than 200 million, because if they exceeded that particular cap, they were required to come and get listed on the main board. So now the ease that is provided to companies on the GEM is that no matter what their post-issue paid-up capital, and the cap has been removed. So no matter what your post-issue paid-up capital, you can come and you can consider getting listed. The cap of 200 million has been removed. Okay, Anis, your question is there a licensing requirement for a track holder to act as a advisor for an SME for listing on GEM? So a track holder or a security broker has now been allowed to act as an advisor. If you have the license of a security broker, you can act as an advisor. You do not need a separate license for that. So essentially, all active track holders can advise. Yeah, Omar, that's true. All active track holders can actually advise. And this has actually been done to encourage growth companies to come and to get listed. Earlier, since there was a very limited pool from which people, could come and could select an actual advisor, there were a lot of issues. A lot of companies that wanted to get listed were not coming in for listing. They felt that the consultants were charging them too high a fee. So we would like to, reduce the fees that are being charged. So we've allowed not only consultants to act as an advisor, but also the security brokers. Can a growth company become main board company in the future? Yes, like I said, a growth company can migrate from the GEM onto the main board. So yes, a growth company, once it grows considerably in size, it can move on to our elite board, our premium board, and become listed on the main board. Are there any startups or any SMEs that have logged in today and are actually listening to this session? I would love to get some feedback from their side. Okay, let me see if I can. Okay, I think I've even allowed you to talk. So if there's anyone who would consider actually asking a question, they can do so. Yes, Imran, I think you've raised your hand. Do you have a question? Okay, Farooq Jahangir has asked a question. For any new company, what is the minimum age to enter PSX? So if you're a new company and you're considering getting listed on the growth enterprise market, there is no certain minimum age. Like I've said, if you are a very new company, newly incorporated, you've not actually started operations, you're a greenfield company, even you can consider listing. If you've been in operations for less than 2 years, even you can consider listing. If you've been in operation for 5 to 10 years and would like to come in, get listed, but do not want to be subject to the numerous regulatory obligations that are levied on companies on the main board, you can come and consider listing on the GEM. Great. Okay, anyone else has any questions? Can I have an offline copy of this meeting? I believe a recorded version of this presentation is going to be uploaded on our website. Does it take a long time to getting the listing process? No, it shouldn't take long. It depends upon the company in itself, how long it takes the company to get its documentation in order. So the listing process in itself has been simplified. So I don't think it should take too long for you to get listed on the growth enterprise market. Get yourself a good consultant, and your consultant and we can have a quick chat, and we can surely facilitate listing. Omar Salah, if there is no cap on paid up capital, how would PSX determine whether the company has grown enough to move on to the ready board? Omar, we have to develop this particular criteria for migration. That has not been developed yet. That's why I did not go into detail regarding the criteria for a migration. So right now, we're completely focused on getting companies to list on the growth enterprise market. And once that is done, we'll consider devising a solid criteria around migration. How long should a company remain listed on GEM before actually considering migrating to the main board? Farooq, I think you're talking about the time duration to get listed, right? So from the time you approach a consultant, let's say, or you approach an advisor to the issue, and they work on getting your documentation in order, actually marketing your issue, and then they need to come to us. We should not take long, because again, the whole purpose of wanting to get listed on the GEM is wanting a simplified listing procedure. So from our side, it shouldn't take too long. And again, the process of approval is also internal. We do not have a committee granting approvals to listing of growth companies. So it's all management driven. So it shouldn't take too long. Why economists don't have faith in PSX growth? Again, I think I should not be commenting on that. That's not my topic today. Consultant, any list of approved consultants? Yes, the list of consultants to the issue is there on the PSX website, as well as on the website of the SSCP. And like I said, I named a few consultants from the top of my head. So you could take a consultant that has an active investment banking team. Other than that, if you would like to have the complete list, please look into our website. If you would like to have a list of licensed brokers, that also is available on the website of the commission. Economy is downward, PSX is upward. All I can comment is that the exchange is only a barometer of the economy. So if the exchange is going upwards, that is a sure sign that the economy is doing well. And when when the economy isn't doing well, we always see PSX nosediving. So consultants are a must. Like I said, an advisor is a must. Your advisor can be either a consultant, or your advisor can be a security broker, one of the two. But yes, a consultant is a must. An advisor is a must, be it a consultant or be it a security broker. Sure, no problem. You're welcome. Yes, Ali, I think you raised your hand. Just give me a minute. Okay, my apologies there. I think I got a call. Can you share this presentation with us after the webinar? Sure, I think if you can write your email ID, I can probably share that. When is the next webinar and what's the topic? We have a list of all our webinars on our website, and you can access them at any time and see when the next webinar is and what the topic would be. Before listing, are we allowed to do marketing? Right, that's the question. So yeah, before you actually get listed, you can your advisor is supposed to market your issue for you, and is supposed to generate sufficient market interest amongst eligible investors only. Like I mentioned, eligible investors would be institutional investors and HNWIs. So an individual can also invest provided he has net assets of 15 million and above, excluding the value of personal residence. Okay, Sharif Saab, I'm noting down your email ID, and I'll surely send a copy of the presentation to you. Farooq, do you also want a copy of the presentation? I would still say if you have any questions, you can ask them out loud here. I believe your mics are open, so you can ask them over here. I would like to have an interactive session. You can note down my email ID. You can send me a quick email, and probably I can respond with the presentation. So my email address is asma, asma.malik, MALIK @psx.com.pk. I think that would be good. Okay, great. I think we're done with all the questions. Thank you so much for coming in, for joining me today. Hopefully we get to chat, and hopefully we get to talk in another webinar very soon. Till then, like I said before, if you have any questions, you can contact me. You can contact the exchange at any time. You can contact my marketing team, my listing team. You have my email address too. You can get my phone number too. That's 3527-4532. If you have any questions regarding GEM, you can give me a quick call, and I would love to hear from you, be it from the consultant side, be it from the issuer side. It will be good to chat up. So I look forward to seeing you all in some other webinar. Till then, goodbye and Allah Hafiz.